Oxnard City Public Works and Transportation Committee, roll call and posting of the agenda and the flag salute. We'll have Mr. Hauser lead the flag salute. The roll call, please.
Member Flynn is,
Here.
he's here, but he stepped away for a second. Member McDonald
Here.
and Chair Perla.
Here.
And Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, February 18th.
And Jan, can you lead us in the flag salute?
All rise. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I have no comment, no public comments. We'll move to the next item. The consent agenda, the city clerk department, the approval of the minutes. Have we had an opportunity to read the minutes? Do we have an action?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Minutes passed unanimously. Moving to item D1, the reports. Public Works Department, purchase of new heavy equipment for the Del Norte Regional Recycling and Transfer Station. And can we have staff read the recommendation also, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, committee and city manager. Todd Housley, Environmental Resources Division Manager. Requesting today that the committee approve an authorized purchase order with Quinn Company, which is Caterpillar, for heavy equipment for the Del Norte Regional Recycling and Transfer Station. We're asking you to execute a purchase order, or recommend the execution of a purchase order with Quinn Company in the amount of just above $1.2 million for the supply of heavy equipment for the Del Norte Regional Recycling and Transfer Station, and to approve the appropriation of funds. Background. May 5th, 2014, when we were working on this item, it really hit me how long ago it was that we transitioned this facility. So it's been 6 years since our first purchase of heavy equipment rotated into the facility. In beginning of 2019, due to CARB emission regulations from the state, we had to remove 2 of our backup pieces of equipment. And we're in a situation now where remaining heavy equipment units have approached their end of useful life, and we require prompt replacement. So these are essential pieces of equipment. We're going through the Sourcewell bid process, which is within the city's purchasing protocol. This allows us to leverage purchasing power through a nationally vetted program, maximizes discounts based on economies of scale. It's a convenient local vendor with access to global resources. And again, it is within the city's current purchasing policy. These are the units that we are requesting approval for. Again, essential equipment. The 2 full-size articulated loaders are the backbone of moving our piles of material. Those are the large Caterpillars you see when coming into the facility. Those are 960 that are specially designed for handling solid waste. We do have a compact articulated wheel loader, which is used on the recycling side of the MRF to move just recycling material. Skid steers are the smaller, really agile pieces of equipment that we can grab recyclables, further recyclables from our waste piles before they're hand sorted. And 2 forklifts, one with a rotator attachment and one with a standard attachment.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you say articulated, are those the ones that are hinged in the middle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, don't call me sir, that was my dad. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the total cost for this purchase is just over $1.2 million, and we're requesting a budget appropriation to match that from the Environmental Resources Fund balance. And the estimated remaining fund balance at this point after this purchase would be $24.2 million, which is above the 25% legal requirement, well above it actually. So that's the end of my presentation. I can take any questions from the body at this time.
Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a quick question. So when the state, because of the emission standards and as they're evolving, basically we have to mothball or get rid of these older pieces of equipment, what do we actually do with those? Do we auction them off, or where do they go to states that don't have such strict air pollution controls? How does that work?
There's two answers to that question. One is we take parts off of them that we think we can use on new equipment. So that would help in maintenance moving forward. The other is if there is anything left of value, we would either auction it off or scrap it out for the metal value.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. There is, on the skid steer loaders on page 10 of the presentation, it talks about the radio, AM, FM, Bluetooth. Do we have, and the reason I ask this, sometimes people can listen to the radio and get lost in thoughts and not be paying attention. Do we allow the AM, FM radios to be used in the vehicles in the facility?
The answer is yes, but it has to be a hands-off situation. So sometimes the Bluetooth can feed into an earphone. It can't be beyond a volume where they can hear a radio call or any other safety measures, or interrupt or bother customers or any other employees.
Okay, and the second thing on the skid steer loaders, they give us a warranty of 2 years and 2,000 hours at 8 hours a day. That comes out to 250 days a year. When is the useful life of a skid steer loader past the warranty? Is there much past the warranty, or?
Where we hit the point in the graph where keeping it around and paying to maintain it usually is sometime between 5 and 7 years. Now it varies on the hours depending upon your operation, but as we get closer to 7 years, the more critical it becomes to replace, just for reliability.
Okay, thank you. I had no speakers on this item, so I'll request a recommendation. Okay,
Second?
okay, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Member Flynn,
Aye.
Member McDonald,
Yes.
Chair Perrelli.
Yes.
The motion
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon, City Clerk, I cut you off. Sorry. Next item, item D2, and we have a speaker on this item. Update on wastewater diversion capital improvement project. And the recommendation by staff, please read it, and we'll have a speaker at the end of this presentation.
Okay, good morning, committee chair and committee members. My name is Jan Hauser. I'm the wastewater division manager. And as you said, I'm here today to give you an update on our capital improvement plan for the wastewater division. So the recommendation is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee receive a presentation on the wastewater system capital improvement program. So I want to just reiterate a little bit of background and how we got to where we are today. So in 2014, the Public Works Department embarked on a comprehensive integrated master plan that looked at the wastewater systems, the water systems, and the recycled water systems. I'm here today to talk about just the wastewater portion of that. So the scope of that project included the review and analysis of the existing operation, facilities, design, and construction of the existing facilities. There was a condition assessment done of all the facilities and equipment as part of the project. And then they looked at alternatives about improving and upgrading the system. Along with that was some cost estimating so we can get kind of a range of what the cost of any improvements would be. And finally, a recommended plan came out of the report. So probably the most startling results were from the condition assessment. And you've seen this in different forms. But basically, 80% of the facilities were deemed to be in fair or worse condition. So everything to the right shows the condition of the facilities. And you want everything to be to the left. So basically, when the number at the fair point starts to increase, then you want to start replacing or updating facilities. We really should have very little to no facilities in the poor or very poor condition. So it became very clear that a pretty important or large improvement was going to be required. So the recommendations were a 10-year capital improvement program broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 looked at those facilities that were near imminent failure, really. We called it emergency repairs. Years 3 to 5 included reliability improvements, or those facilities that were deemed to be in poor condition and that really were the baseline of the reliability of the plant. And finally, the third phase, or years 6 to 10, were long-term modernization or upgrade of the plant. So that's a real a long-term look at the improvements. So a rate study based on these improvements, a rate study was completed in 2017, and it incorporated and looked at the first 5 years or the first 2 phases of the recommended plan. And out of that, as you guys are aware, were annual rate increases over a 5-year period. We've gotten through 4 of those. We have 1 more to go in 2021. So the rate increases included the cost of the improvements that were identified in years 1 through 5, or the first 2 phases, as I said. And here's roughly the breakdown. So improvements at the wastewater treatment plant, just under $52 million. Collection system improvements, about $15 million. Vehicles and equipment, about $2 million. And then there was $10 million that was scheduled for consulting services to look at phase 3, or years 6 through 10. Total of just under $80 million. So these next few slides I'm going to go through is just a chronological timeline of some critical events and milestones that we have reached. And if I can do this, so I'll just walk through this, bear with me a little bit. So the master plan was initiated in May of 2014. In April of 2016, we started the preliminary design report and final design on the emergency projects. In January of 2017, the PDR, preliminary design report, was completed for all the improvements in the first 2 phases. We embarked on the 218 process in January and February of 2017 through the URAP process, or the Utility Ratepayers Advisory Panel. In May, the new rate ordinance was adopted of 2017. And then the final master plan was updated and submitted to reflect that in September of 2017. And then the final design for all of the projects in the first 2 phases were initiated in December of 2017. In February of 2018, we awarded our first construction project, and that was the rehabilitation of 2 of the 3 cogeneration engines. Okay. And then the emergency projects were released for bidding in September of 2018. We received those bids in November of 2018, and we awarded that contract in February of 2019 to GSE Construction. Final designs for reliability projects, the remaining projects, was completed in March of 2019. And then bids were received for the second or final phase of the cogen rehab in April of 2019. And then that project was awarded in July. And then finally, this is the status of the projects that were bid and awarded. So the BioTower work was completed in July of 2019. The chemically enhanced primary treatment facility was completed in November of 2019. The HVAC replacement in the laboratory and the solids processing building improvements were completed in December. And the final cogen engine was put back online in January of this year. We have 1 project we're still working on. In fact, they're out there as we speak, and that's the primary clarifier rehabilitation. So that's the timeline right up to date. So here's the status. We have completed the cogen engine refurbishment project, and that again is our on-site power utility structure. The laboratory HVAC replacement has been completed. The biotower work is completed, the solids processing building was completed, and the chemically enhanced primary treatment project has also been completed. And again, the one project still in progress and nearing completion is the primary clarifiers. So with that, I am going to do a little show and tell about these projects that were completed. So here's the biotower before the work began. Here they are power washing the outside of the facilities. And this is the finished product. It's hard to see in this picture, but the towers are completely wrapped with structural wire mesh. And that's because they were deemed to be structurally deficient, and we were worried about things falling in case of an earthquake or not. So now they are secured. This is the foundation excavation for the CEPT, or Chemically Enhanced Primary Treatment Facility. Here they are putting together the re-steel, ready for pouring concrete, and that's the finished facility right there. That's the old HVAC unit at the laboratory, which has been out of service for many years. There's the new unit sitting on the ground outside our laboratory. Here's workmen putting together the base of the unit, and then there's the new unit. It is in service and working excellently. Here is, I'm going to the solids processing building now. This was probably the largest of all the projects. It was really to replace the dewatering, the solids dewatering equipment. There's 4 of these. These are called belt filter presses. And so here they are lifting out one of the old ones. I'm going to try to run a video here real quick. We'll see if it works. And there we go. So they're taking out the old units here. This isn't too long, so. But you can see these are large units. There they are putting it on the trailer to take it away. And then we have another short video here. Whoops. There we go. This is them putting a new unit up through the skylights into place. So it's quite a job. There were 4 of these. And then one more. And that's the new unit coming down through the skylights and being put in place. You can see it's a very tight squeeze in there, and so they all 4 of them went in just as planned, no issues. So there's the new skylights. That's finished product. The old skylights basically fell apart when we took them off, and so we have new skylights on the building. They're very nice. Here's the finished product. So you can see here's the 4 units that were put in, 1, 2, 3, 4. New controls over here. New fire suppression system was put in the building. So that building is now completely refurbished. It should be good for quite a long time. The cogen engine refurbishment. This is a workman tearing one of the engines apart. You can see we tore it right down to the bones and the block. Took everything apart. We put in new pistons. The old piston is on the right, new piston on the left. They're quite large, as you can see, and there's finished product. And again, there's 3 of those, and they're all working very well. It's a good project. Here's the one project that isn't complete, but they are out there working on this today as we speak. And so this is the primary clarifiers, close-up of kind of some of the deterioration and corrosion of some of the facilities. So that's all being replaced. There they are taking out the old facility or old equipment. And it's hard to tell in this picture, but the weirs have been removed in this picture. So that is all the projects we've completed. So the next phase, phase 2, years 3 to 5, is quite a bit larger project. It includes all these projects. The first two are basically the replacement of much of our electrical system, probably our most vulnerable part of the plant right now. We have work at the Headworks facility. Whoops. Here, it includes odor control improvements. So as we all know, odors have been an ongoing issue out there, so we are upgrading our odor control system there. There's more work actually to do at the primary clarifiers, and that also includes more odor control systems. So that's very important. The aeration system is going to be replaced, which is the key biological treatment process at the plant. We have site security improvements, which includes a new fence around the facility and cameras. We have a digester rehab. We have 3 digesters. One has been out of service for 15 years, and we're going to put that back into service. This is what produces the gas that allows us to run those engines that produces energy that we use at the plant. So incredibly important project. We also have pump station upgrades and rehabilitation. Site piping is important. Some of our piping at the plant is unreliable, and I'll show you where we just had a failure. We have a new maintenance storage building and a new SCADA, or supervisory control and data acquisition system. So what's the status? All these projects have been designed or are nearing completion. They've all been submitted to Plan Check, and we're going through responding to their comments right now. We anticipate bidding all of these projects by July 1st, or the next fiscal year of this year. And construction is anticipated to take about 2 more years. So show and tell part 2. So here's some of the antiquated electrical equipment that will be replaced. Here are the backup generators that are Vietnam era that we had have had some reliability issues. I got another short video for you here for those Sparkies in the audience. Let's see if I can get this thing going. So this was a failure in the generator. You can see those sparks shouldn't be there. So anyway, one of our maintenance guys noticed this, and it was not working properly, so we got a video of this. Our guys fixed this themselves. So we've got a really good staff out there. So here is an existing picture of the storage building that will be demolished, and in its place will be this is the new electrical building, okay? This will replace a building just over to the right that you can't see in this picture, but that has had ongoing reliability issues. So very important project. Here's the digester I spoke of. That's out of service. The problem is basically that the roof has collapsed. There's holes through the roof, and it can't be used in its existing condition. So this will give us a considerably more capacity in our ability to produce gas and run those cogen engines. Headworks, we have a lot of corrosion problems there. If the odor control system, the new odor control system that will be going in here should address a lot of this ongoing corrosion. So all this stuff is going to be replaced, and the odor control system will be a new odor control system will be constructed. Site piping, of course, we had a failure on Thanksgiving Day. So we had all of our people out there, instead of eating turkey, they were digging holes in the ground to try to fix this failed pipe. This is what we call our 3W system. It failed on Thanksgiving Day, like I said. This shut the plant down. So this is a critical water system at the plant, internal water system, that we've had a number of failures over the last few years. This will be replaced. So the other portions of that were identified in the master plan, a quick update. Devco lift station, or lift station number 23, has been completed. That was done by a developer. The developer has been paid. We've taken that system over, and it's in service now. It's working very nicely. The manhole rehabilitation projects are in the engineering phase. We just completed a portion of that, and that should be going out to bid in the next 6 months or sooner. We are also adding chemical addition stations. As I think you all know, we've done a pilot study at Lift Station 6 with ferrous chloride. It's helped tremendously with odors at the plant. So we've identified a new site that we're starting the engineering on for the central trunk sewer. That will be at Woolley and Richmond. The engineering has started on that. And we have sewer improvements, and all those improvements have been coded or programmed into the 5-year capital improvement program. Vehicles, you just approved a sewer cleaning vehicle. That's one of our primary vehicles to clean the sewers. The paperwork is going through for a new camera truck, emergency portable generators, and then there's some additional equipment that's on the list that we're getting the paperwork put through right now. Finally, the professional services, the $10 million I was talking about, we have an RFP drafted that should go out sometime this summer to hire a consultant to start working on the long-term plan for the plant. So I want to talk, the last couple slides here are talking a little bit about the funding. So obviously it's very important that we have a funding plan to pay for all these improvements. So first, our bond rating had been upgraded through this process, and that was for a number of different reasons. One was the reserves that we've since built up as part of that. That was very important. And so that's important for bonding and other reasons. So we refinanced some of our debt. That saves us about $100,000 per year. And all the phase 1 projects that I just showed you, those have been paid for in cash, so through our reserves. Here's the remaining part of the funding, really for the phase 2 projects. So we do have fund balance available, about $16 million based on the 2019 CAFR. This is a great thing. It's very unusual. We have received a $9.5 million grant from the state. All that paperwork's been signed, and that money is available. We have 3 other grants that I want to talk about here. So, whoops, I'm sorry. I almost got through without any more user error here. So anyway, we did receive a grant of just under $60,000 for a portable backup generator. That grant is secure, and we are in the process of securing that generator. We also have 2 other much larger grants, $3.2 million for the electrical building and emergency generator, and just under $2 million for the reconstruction of the central trunk sewer under the railroad tracks. We've made it through, I think, 2 gates, and we're nearing potential securing of those grants. And then finally, the last piece here is the $66.7 million SRF, or Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. We were ranked number 2 in the state for that, so we're in the fundable range. We're just going through the paperwork to get that secured. The nice thing about the grant, or the loan, it is a loan. It's not a bond. It's not a grant. We only pay back for what we use. So if we only use 30 or 40 million, that's all we have to pay back on that. So, and that's a low interest, 2% interest, 20 or 30 year. We still have to work on that. So anyway, that completes the update. And before I take questions, I do want to acknowledge it's not me doing this, it's a big group of people here at the city. So the wastewater staff has been instrumental in identifying the projects and keeping the plant running through the construction. That's very important. We're working very closely with the engineering department, Tatiana, and George Espinoza is our project manager. We're working with them every single day. Eric Hummel, who shepherded through the paperwork and the grant applications and the SRF, applications is a good, important part of the team. We're working closely with the finance department, with Kevin and Donna and their team on the funding plan, so that's very important. And finally, I want to give accolades to Tien, who is the consistent and ongoing driver of all of these projects. And he's a great champion and a great supporter. And so that does complete the presentation. Be happy to take questions.
Do the council members have any technical questions about this, or we'll wait for our comments after the public speaker? Do you have any?
I can wait.
Okay. We have one, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We have one public speaker, Daniel Ryberg. It's good to see him again.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Daniel Ryberg. I live at 278 Sycamore Street. I thought that was an excellent presentation. And first of all, I'd just like to thank you for supporting the wastewater division over the past several years as they begin to rebuild the failing wastewater plant. You supported them, I think, in two ways. One, by setting rates at a reasonable level, and two, by providing Public Works with additional staff. I think the Public Works has more management staff now than they've had since probably 1993. And you can see that the speed and quality of these temporary repairs, show what can be done, what amazing results city staff can achieve if giving an appropriate level of resources. The projects that they have completed have helped the city both reduce the health risk as well as reduce the economic risk to the city from the failing wastewater treatment plant. But I just wanted to remind you that these are really just stopgap measures. The plant needs about a 60 to 70% rebuild. This is a mid-20th century plant, not a 21st century plant. So the city will need to continue to educate residents and provide adequate resources to make sure that the plant can be fully replaced in order to protect the health and environment into the future. I also think that it would be good to publicize this project more. I'm going to recommend to the INCO that they request a similar presentation to a general membership meeting, because I think it's good that the residents know what's been done with their wastewater rates and how really a very cost-effective fix to some serious problems has taken place. So again, I just wanted to thank you for doing the right thing for ourselves and our children and our future by fixing the worst parts of the wastewater plant, which were under-maintained and underfunded for many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have no other public comments. Okay. Comment?
If I could, thank you very much for the presentation, and I agree with what the speaker just had to say. With the appropriate resources, things can get done, and they can get done in fairly quick order. And I think the presentation was very clear about the update. And I want to say, first and foremost, this presentation, which is very visual and I think very helpful, especially to the public and to the committee, I would say for myself, not speaking on behalf of my colleagues, but I think it's important to say to the city manager and to the staff that we had some presentations about city finances recently before the Finance and Governance Committee, and I had requested and/or asked that these updates on city finances be presented in very short clips or videos to the public. And I think we have an excellent communications manager, and I think we're well positioned to try to get the right information out to the public. And I'll just say, if you can go up to, please, just the page that shows the overall financing of the CIP. I know it's on the slide presentation, but I always right before this one. Right before it? Yep. And so what I'd like to say is the total amount, and I think this for this committee meeting to be rebroadcasted to the public. I think it's very important for the public to understand that this capital cost, this long-term investment in the wastewater plant, or otherwise known as the sewer plant for more simplicity, that for the sewer plant, it's just shy of $80 million. So to get this plant functioning, we know that there were numerous failures of the plant leading up to a lot of these repairs, but to get this plant functioning, the cost is $80 million, and the rates that the rate increase of $25 a month over a 5-year period. Once again, $25 a month extra that the resident of Oxnard will pay over the next 5 years. So 5 years from now, the bill will be on average $25 higher, is meant to finance this $80 million capital improvement project. And without trying to politicize what should not be a political issue, the fact of the matter is that 80 million, I believe, was a minimum to keep this plant functioning over, say, the next 10 or 20 years until the city decides if, in fact, it's going to build a new plant or relocate the plant. But if you think about the fact that the proposed alternative from an individual who happens to be an accountant was, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. I could be wrong, could be 12 million, a hefty $2 million increase, but a $12 million proposal to do what actually engineers and highly qualified people deemed was a minimal investment of $80 million. And it's really unfortunate, I want to say to my colleagues on this committee, to the city manager, to the staff, and members of the public, that it almost succeeded, that this $80 million investment was not going to be made, and it would have led to catastrophic outcomes. Yet, because some people were convinced that you can get something for nothing, that the wastewater system is basically free and that we don't have to invest in it. And when I see these figures and I see the progress that's been made, it brings me right back to this highly politicized political campaign that said that we only had to invest $12 million when in fact it's closer to 80. And Mr. City Manager, I hope that what we can do also, in addition to these videos that will educate the public, is I think we need to, as we've made progress, open the wastewater plant up for tours of members of the public. Allow members of the public to once again visit the wastewater plant, so maybe they first see some of the videos as we saw, and then they go out and they actually inspect them. And that's open, should be open to all members of the public, because not only do we not have anything to hide, we want to, ideally we'd have every member of the public go to the wastewater plant. I know the wastewater plant isn't the most popular attraction maybe in the city. There are other places that people would rather go, maybe the collection rather than the wastewater plant. But I'll end with just one technical question, and that's about the fortification of, not the biogester, but the
Biotower.
the biotower.
Yeah.
If we go back to the biotower just for a second, I don't know, because I don't have an engineering background or a structural engineering background. Okay, so, you know, we see it, yes.
Yep.
And so it really looks cleaned up. And one of the things that kind of left a thought in my mind was that it was being cleaned up and it visually looks a lot better. But you talked about the fact that this biotower was not structurally sound, and in the event of an earthquake, it could have brought this maybe possibly down to the ground. Tell me specifically how this wire mesh, and I understand wire mesh and rebar and things like that are used to, you know, put, how do we know at this point just what kind of earthquake, as an example? We have one council member, the Mayor Pro Tem, who talks a lot about earthquakes and not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. To what extent could it withstand an earthquake? And that's what I'm interested to know.
So I'm not really qualified to answer that question, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I don't know what size earthquake it could endure. The purpose of the mesh and the wire wrap is, if there is a failure, it contains anything that might fall off that facility inside, right? So nothing falls on somebody's head that might be walking by or nearby. So it won't collapse outward, it'll collapse inward. So I don't know if you have any better answer than that about the, but I think there's been 2 or 3 structural analysis done of these facilities, and they all 3 came to the same conclusion, that they're not designed to today's standards.
Okay.
And we need to do something about it. Now, the long-term plan, just so you know, this is the first stage of a 2-stage biological process. Our long-term goal is to remove these facilities altogether, and we're going through some testing right now to see if we can do it with the existing facilities. So the long-term plan is to get rid of these, otherwise we would have done a different fix than this. We would have done a more permanent fix, but the long-term plan is to get rid of these facilities.
And I'm just curious to know what the alternative is to a biotower with the recent technology.
So the alternative is what we already have, and that's activated sludge or aeration basins. And so we have aeration basins now that have considerable capacity, actually. So the wastewater now goes through these towers, and it's a biological process also. So there's growth on the media inside of these things that removes some of the pollutants from the wastewater, and then it gets pumped to the aeration basins for further treatment. We believe we can have similar or just as good a treatment with just the aeration basins. We have some modifications we need to do, but we think we can do it with the existing basins, the aeration basins.
And is that the direction, I mean, I don't know from the CIP on this whole thing, are those improvements going to be made to the aeration basins that you're talking about, or is that investment not going to be made?
No, it is going to be made. Right now, we are finishing up the design of the replacement of the aeration system, and most importantly, the control system. So we get air in the water with fairly large blowers, that control the air. And right now, the control system on those blowers is inadequate. So we're upgrading the control system, which will allow us to do more treatment in the basins. So,
And then the final question is, when it comes to energy consumption at the plant, to what extent does this part of the process, how much, I mean, I don't need to know the exact amount of
Yeah.
energy, but what percentage of the energy at the plant is consumed by the biotower? Do you have any idea?
So not on a percentage basis, but if we remove these, so there's two power requirements for these things. One is we blow, you can kind of see it on the left side of this picture. There's blowers where we blow air into the bottom and it goes up through the top, the water goes down. So we won't need those blowers. Plus we pump now twice. It comes to a pump station, we pump it to the top of these, comes down, we pump it again to the aeration basin. So we will remove some significant pumping from the process if we get rid of these biotowers. So there will be significant energy savings.
Very well. I just make a final comment to the committee and the city manager. I just want to thank Tien. I want to thank the former Public Works Director, our current Public Works Director, and those individuals yourself that are responsible for this, because I just feel, I feel a sense of, or an awareness now that the investments that we're making right now are going to be able to sustain this plant. I would hope for another couple decades. I don't know if that's overly ambitious, another couple decades, and that the public can be rest assured that the investments are being made right now to protect the health and safety of the residents. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And infrastructure is very expensive, and it's a very unfortunate aspect of politics that it does involve money. So I'd just like to say that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it also takes a lot of time. So you can see from the timeline, this has been going on a while, and this doesn't happen overnight. So, yeah, that's a very important point.
Thank you.
Couple comments. Thank you for the presentation. You answered one of my questions, which is going to be about the future of the biotower. And I've done a little bit of reading on this, and sometimes a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. But my understanding is that biotowers are passé technology, that it's not really the way to go. So I just don't know how expensive it is to remove it and put in the current technology. But hopefully that's something that's kind of on our drawing board. On a temporary side, did we do anything to the interior to fix the seepage to the exterior, or?
No, we chose not to do that. That would
Okay.
have increased the cost considerably, and it wasn't leaking that bad, but no, we did not do that.
And that's fine in the foreseeable future, which might be 10 years, if we're going to remove that technology.
Oh, hopefully less than that.
Okay, then it probably wouldn't be a wise investment anyway. But
Right.
typically, when you see shrubbery growing on the outside
Yeah.
of a structure, that tells you there's a little bit of moisture coming from somewhere.
Well, we're trying to look into the future a little bit and spend the money wisely, so.
And then the other comment I'll make is I'm kind of shocked that we had a biodigester offline for 15 years and haven't done anything with it. I'm glad that it's being brought back online, because there are other discussions going on that will involve other utilities that this biodigester might be beneficial for. So depending on state mandates and things, and they're very preliminary discussions, but I'm glad to see us doing that. And, talking with some external people, building a new biodigester system is extremely expensive. And if we have something available that we can bring online that's reliable, then that might be the best solution to what we're looking for the future. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for, just all the work that you do. I know you're working with something that's as old as I am, but it looks a lot better than I do. So, but still needs to be replaced. So I think there's a bright future ahead of us. So thank you very much. And I would agree with the mayor about if people could avail themselves to touring that, I think they'd be amazed at the amount of work that goes in at the end of a toilet flush that people just don't realize.
Yeah.
As long as they flush the toilet and it goes downstream, they're happy. And I don't think a lot of folks have a real idea of what all the technical issues are to deal with that material when it gets down to the end.
So for whatever it's worth, we're always open to the public. Some people occasionally call us and we bring them in and give them a tour, right? But we don't generally publicize that. We are in the beginning stages of planning an open house in maybe June or May or June of this year. So we're planning an open house that will be publicized, right? Try to get some of the public in.
Number one, thank you very much for the presentation. I want to compliment you on reaching out and sharing the credit with people that have worked here before and after. With all the trauma that the city went through because of this and a recall and various different things, I hope the city manager will work to give you opportunity during the council meeting so the other 4 council members can see this presentation. The before and after and showing the work that has been done is tremendous. And I agree with my other 2 members here. We got to take a victory lap when we have one. You guys have done a lot of work. It's still not finished. We got a lot more to go, as has been mentioned. I appreciate you handling on slide 47. You talked about the financing and how the reserves and things have worked and the savings and the finance department. Everybody, this is a team effort. Councilman McDonald is absolutely right. You flush the toilet and that's the last you want to think about it, but there's a lot between there and the end of the line. It's a compliment to everybody that working in the city of Oxnard now and some in the past. The rate increases over the 5 years that led to a lot of people believing a lot of things. I don't like paying any more than I have to, but nothing's free. And when the maintenance has been allowed to go to the state that it was, it gets much more expensive. A real good analysis, if you don't take care of your teeth, then you decide to later on, it gets damned expensive. The issue that you mentioned about the odors, maybe our neighboring city would be interested in seeing this presentation, how we're trying to help things that are not all caused by the city of Oxnard. There's an assumption made, and sometimes assumptions can have problems. A question with respect to a photograph that was shown sometime in the past. There was at one time a flood in the area, a lot of standing water. These new facilities that we're improving, have we done something to make sure that if there is that event, if it does rain again in large amounts and big king tides and everything, and we do have a flooding event, that the electrical areas and stuff like that will not be impacted?
Yeah, so the new electrical building, which I showed a rendering of, has been elevated about 3.5 or 4 feet, which will take it out of any, future sea level rise, floodplain, or, any potential flooding hazard into the future.
Okay. I would like to tell the rest of the committee and the people in the audience, Mr. Hauser was at the Via Marina Neighborhood Council, and there was questions about the odor, and he handled and was a credit to the city of Oxnard. But you did mention that there's one area where we've put in a chemical plant, and you gave a number. Is that in that area of Via Marina? Because I'm sure people in Via Marina are going to watch this.
Yeah, so lift station 6 is at the intersection of Woolley and the Edison Canal. You can see the tanks out there. It feeds into what we call the Redwood Trunk Sewer, which is the sewer that goes past that neighborhood, yes. And in fact, the odors, we did talk about odors at that meeting.
Right.
The odors in that area and lift station 29, which was another issue in the past with odors, have been greatly improved. And we are out there monitoring because of that meeting. So we're looking into any other potential improvements.
And I say it again, I'm really impressed with your presentation. I hope we can show more of this to the public, and I think the other two councilmen are absolutely right. We take snippets and put it out there, let people know, before and after pictures. Very few people drive down Perkins Road, and when you drive by, you see the same buildings that were there. You don't know what's inside. It's like making sausage. Not too many people want to look and see what's inside, but this is a good time to go take a look. Thank you. And this is, my understanding is this is simply a receive and file type
Yes,
report.
and we will be taking this to the full council, hopefully in early April. And Mr. Mayor, if you're willing to lead the tours, we'll set that up as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I had been a tour guide director in the past, and I would volunteer for that position.
Okay. Okay. Any other further action required on this matter, City Clerk? No? Okay. Moving to the next item. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks to all that were involved, and share that with everybody else that works that's not having an opportunity to be here.
One
Please.
final word. I do want to thank Mr. Rydberg for all the work he put into this and his comments tonight.
Yeah.
So he's a great supporter. We appreciate everything he did. I didn't talk about the previous people involved, but thank you, Mr. Rydberg.
I'd like to also comment, Mr. Ryberg is on the INCO, the Neighborhood Council Organization, represent the city of Oxnard, and I trust that he's going to share this with them, and thank you for coming. Thank you. How's the family, and if everything's okay, I hope. All right. Going to item number 3. We are, item number 3. The subject, amend Enterprise Fleet Management Agreement and Restructuring Fleet Services Division. There are 4 items on this, and when staff goes over this, I hope that they will read each of the items and explain why we're coming back with an amending this item. Thank you.
Good morning, Committee Chair, committee members. Brian Yan is Assistant Public Works Director. Yes, I'll be explaining that. You've seen this presentation January 28th. You've approved this presentation. However, what was not included was the maintenance cost that we would be using in this contract to pay Enterprise. So this contract went up $1.6 million, taking the previous contract of $2.5 million to $4.1. We're not asking for another appropriation because the money is in current budgets from departments under equipment maintenance charges. This is calculated through the ISF, which is the internal service fee. So there's no further appropriation needed for this recommendation or this change to this number 1 recommendation. So I wanted to mention that first. So the recommendation is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a First Amendment to Agreement A8136 with Enterprise Fleet Management Incorporated Enterprise that increases the current agreement value by $3,425,000, bringing it to a grand total of $4.1 million, and extends the term through December 1st, 2025. That's the only recommendation that has changed from the previous presentation that you received on January 28th. Again, and number 2 is authorize Public Works Fleet Services Division to enroll approximately 375 city-owned vehicles into Enterprise's maintenance management program and all new leased or city-owned vehicles that qualify for the program. Eliminate 3 staff positions from Fleet Services Division. And on January 28th, I did mention, beginning of this presentation, that there were no layoffs to these 3 cuts, and that continues today. Authorize city departments to utilize current vehicle replacement funds for leasing or future leasing. So those are the recommendations. The rest of the presentation is the same presentation you received on January 28th. So I can go through this presentation, or we can ask any questions that you may have at this moment.
Let me just ask my committee members, what would your, no?
I'm good. I just have a few questions after you.
Okay, all right. We'll stop and have a few questions right now.
That is great.
So the only question I have, and I understand, what we're doing when it comes to fleet management and why we're doing it, and this has come to us before, is it kind of came up earlier. The thought process was that some of the vehicles that we have, or the machines that we use in Public Works, don't meet California's emission standards, and for that reason they're phased out. And so there's a cost for this, right? There's a cost for California having, probably being the leader in the country when it comes to combination of things, when it comes to air pollution and reduction of greenhouse gases. My question is, with this new fleet management program, to what extent will these, can and should these future purchases be evaluated in terms of these factors of the technologies changing? And again, I'm sorry to ask this question because you don't have a magic ball. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, so I understand that. But is that an element of this? Are they constantly going to be reevaluating the fact of saying, you know something, we're at the point now where we think that we can now go in this direction. As an example, we know from the equipment issue that came up earlier that it's the emissions that aren't as clean about those pieces of equipment of why they had to be phased out. But if in fact, and I know at some point probably this will happen for just about everything, if there are no emissions, then it would seem that it would lengthen the life of these, of the equipment and the vehicles. So that's just my question.
So when we do, with this program, we do want to reduce our carbon footprint by emissions. So we have the opportunity to do that with new leases. I think you're also asking about diesel emissions, which the state is really coming down on all our equipment. And we do have to phase out some of those equipment that uses diesel fuel. We have this year to bring certain pieces of equipment up to the regulations of that, the regulatory emissions that they've been presented to us. So we have a year to either fix those pieces of equipment or vehicles that are diesel or replace them.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Mayor, if I may chime in. So with this leasing program with Enterprise, we're focused on passenger cars, pickup trucks or vans, light-duty trucks, and police cars. And one of the benefits of leasing is you're always getting the latest technology and the latest improvements. The large vehicles that Mr. Yanis is speaking about in addressing your question are vehicles that we continue to own and operate. So that's, to answer your question, that's where we have to be on top of technology changes and requirements.
And I think that's, Mr. City Manager, I appreciate you addressing that. And I realize that the fleet management is something completely different from the earlier equipment purchases from Quinn Caterpillar, that I don't know if they should be integrated or, again, they're purchases rather than leasing. And I don't know if at some point in Public Works, if we would go to leasing for some of these equipment purchases rather than leasing. So that's number one. And number two, yes, trying as to the best extent possible, figuring out how we can extend the life of the equipment.
So Enterprise does not offer heavy equipment to lease. I would have to ask maybe TN in regards to a leasing option for their heavy equipment in some of their operations. I know for a fact that right now I'm looking into, for example, a wood chipper. Rather than full out purchase, we're looking at leasing options and looking at what's the most economical way to go about. So I think internally we're looking at those options because of our budget restrictions in certain departments and certain divisions.
Right, and I'm also thinking about just recently, and I can't remember now, but we purchased 2 lawnmowers, and I can't remember if we leased them or not, but...
Full purchase.
Full purchase, okay. And we know that those types of vehicles or equipment, and probably a lot of the diesel equipment we have are some of the most polluting, and they have perhaps less requirements on them. But anyways, just a concept to throw out there.
Just a quick comment. Thank you for the presentation. I certainly understand your pain when dealing with fleet issues. I sit on the Gold Coast board, and over the years, we have converted our whole fleet to CNG-fueled vehicles. And now the state has come down with a new mandate, the same, I think it's by 2040, they have to be all bus batteries or battery-operated buses. So now we've got all this new technology that we put on board. We have to get rid of it in the next 20 years to go to the next level. And sadly, by the time 2040 gets here, there'll probably be some sort of new technology that they'll say get rid of all the batteries too. So I'm not sure where we're going, but it's hard to keep up. And so I appreciate all your work and efforts, and the mayor talked about the crystal ball. When it comes to California, the crystal ball is usually pretty foggy. You can't see what's in the future. So you're doing a heck of a job, and I appreciate it.
So I do want to mention one thing, and it's under discussion on the staff report. There's a paragraph that talks about this change. So we're only asking for 1.6 million because that takes us 2 years of estimated maintenance costs for the vehicles we're putting into the program. So we're going to evaluate after a year to see if these shops and going through enterprise to maintain these vehicles are working effectively, and we're getting the best bang for our buck. So I did want to mention that.
Excuse us one moment. Where's that?
I have a question to staff about the numbers. So you give us a second.
It needs to be one.
So the original contract was $2.5 million, which included $675,000 of the original contract. So we added the 675 to what we originally needed. 675 minus 2.5 is, I think it was 1 point.
While
So real
he's
quick.
working that out, if I could draw your attention to the staff report itself. So in your binder, I think it's page 88, and it's the first paragraph under the discussion section. I think that clarifies it.
I just mentioned that, Alex.
Yeah.
When you were talking to. So we asked originally on January 28th for $1,825,000, making the full contract that already has the $675,000 with the current contract. That made it $2.5 million. So with the maintenance cost of $1.6 million for 2 years, from the 2.5 goes up to the 4.1. Sorry for the confusion.
Any more questions? Number one, I appreciate when there had to be a correction, it's brought back to the committee, and everything's above board. I mean, if there's a little bit of confusion, it gets clarified, and the back and forth, and I appreciate the presentation, Mr. Yanez.
I lost a little sleep over it, but I appreciate.
I'm going off subject here. I can tell you the previous item that when I said I hope we can present to the public what's happened with the sewer plant and everything, a lot of the people that are in the room right now weren't here when some of the trauma that happened, going through the losing sleep. I can tell you that with the previous item with the sewer plant and what happened. But thank you, and I hope you can make it up over the weekend to sleep. The issue with mentioning of the equipment, the small thing, the city, just to add this, the city of Ojai has gone into, and they've gone into electric and battery charged weed whackers and everything else, and it's been received very well. I think that if we have any information we can share from them or learn from them, cost-wise and everything, it might be beneficial. And apparently, from Councilman William Warwick, who is on the Ojai Council, who shared the information at the Ventura Regional Sanitation District, the employees have been extremely impressed how these things have worked and the lack of maintenance required and breakdowns. The last thing I'd like to ask is, does the city manager want anything else that he wants to address and add on this item?
No, just that we're going to clarify that language yet again before this goes to council, that it's clear from in the recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you.
And being that we had heard the previous one, we only went over the first part of the recommendations. The council, do you have a recommendation, or what do you? Get a motion?
Yeah. Move the item.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Member Flynn.
Aye.
Member McDonald.
Yes.
Chair Perillo.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
And the next item is items for future agendas. Do either of my council members have recommendations?
I have just a quick comment. And last Monday, my street was posted for no parking, which is not that big a deal. It happens periodically. But, when you look at the way our city operates, there are at least 4 entities that can post a street for no parking: Parks, Streets, PD, and Community Development. Well, around early afternoon, my neighbors are calling me saying there's nothing going on out here. What's it posted for? And I had to give him my typical answer of, I don't have a clue. So I called around and asked, and Mr. Yanez was kind enough to take my call. And he said he didn't know either, but he'd have to call around. And come to find out, it was a film permit that had been issued that by community development. And his information was that they were going to be done that day. Well, when I got home that night, the signs had been changed, or maybe I missed it the first time, but it also involved Tuesday, and also included the 400 block of South A Street. And all day Tuesday, nothing happened either. So we had 2 days of posting, and that's life. Sometimes stuff happens. But my observation was, we don't have a central clearinghouse that somebody can go to find out who posted what and why and a point of contact. And just in a little sidebar discussion with the IT folks, and I'm still antiquated, I said, can we make a spreadsheet? And they go, oh, people don't do spreadsheets anymore. We go to Google Maps or Waze, and we put it on a searchable map. So if somebody has a question, they go to, the city website, see a Google map, and see where it's posted, why it's posted, and who did it. And this doesn't have to come back to committee. I'd just like to plant the seed of maybe we can look at a centralized location where when people have questions, and even I could do that instead of having to call staff and say what's going on. I could just go on the internet and look and save staff a lot of busy time trying to deal with my questions and deal with me. And I just think it would make us much more efficient. I mean, we can send stuff to the moon. We got orbiters going to the sun to check out the thing, but we don't have a central clearinghouse to figure out why the street's closed. So it just would make sense to me and make life a lot easier for a lot of folks. So just food for thought.
Thank you. I'd just like to expand on Councilman McDonald's comment. When neighbors ask you what's going on and you don't know, and you're the council member, it's, they may not say it to your face, but you understand exactly what they're thinking. What the hell? You're the city councilman, you don't know what's going on. So his points are well taken. I'm sure we can work on that. I would like to compliment the Public Works Department for the work that they did on Victoria Avenue with taking care of the medians and mowing the brush and the things that had gone on. There have been, right now, there is apparently a lot of work being done in the streets where instead of doing piecemeal, we're taking out curbs and corner intersections, and they will be poured all at one shot. It's a compliment to the Public Works for maximizing the time and minimizing the pain and suffering for the residents in the city of Oxnard. I don't really have an item for the next agenda, and with that, adjourn the meeting. Thank you.